When I was laid off at 51, a lot of people assumed I was done working forever. Like I escaped corporate life, like I crossed some finish line. But I don't think life works like that because what people don't see is that I've already thought about the possibility of going back to work. Yeah, even after all this. And the strange part is the reason I'd go back to work today is completely different than it would have been 10 years ago. Because right now, things are okay. I've got income coming in, I've got a plan. But one thing life has taught me is that plans can change fast. Health changes, markets change, companies change. And I think sometimes online, people talk about retirement like you've reached this magical finish line and suddenly all uncertainty disappears. But real life doesn't work like that, in my opinion. For me, there are really two things that could push me back to work. First is my portfolio. If my portfolio drops over 50%, now that changes everything immediately. Second is healthcare. Right now, I'm estimating around $5,000 a year through the marketplace. Not great, but manageable. But if that suddenly becomes $10,000 or more, now this becomes a very different conversation. And once those numbers change, this stops being theoretical. Now it becomes, okay, what's my next move? And honestly, my first feeling wouldn't be excitement. It would probably be disappointment because I really like my life right now. No alarm clock, no rushing, no traffic, no feeling like my whole day already belongs to somebody else before it even starts. And if you've ever worked a long time, you know exactly what I mean. Think about how much of your day is already decided for you. The alarm tells you when to wake up. The job tells you where to be. The bills tell you how long you have to stay at your job. And then one day turns into 5 days turns into 19 years like me, and you barely stop long enough to ask yourself, do I even like how I'm living? Have you ever felt like your entire day already belonged to someone else before it even started? Do you know what I mean? Let me know. So, if I ever went back to work, I already know one thing. I wouldn't go back to the same way I left. What I mean is, I wouldn't want another corporate job. Not anymore, no. At this stage of my life, peace has become valuable to me. Time has become valuable to me. And honestly, healthcare would probably be the biggest reason I'd go back. And this is the part that completely changed how I think about retirement. Because I realized I don't actually need to replace my old salary. I just need to close a gap. And that's a totally different problem. Because when most people think about leaving work, your brain just kind of jumps straight to how do I replace all my income forever? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what do I actually need now? And that changes everything because maybe you don't need another six-figure job. Maybe you just need health care covered. Maybe you just need your mortgage covered. Maybe you just need enough income not to touch your investments during a down market. And that's different. And once I understood that, I stopped feeling trapped between two extreme choices. Like it's either work full time forever or never make money again because you're retired. And there's actually a middle ground. And I think a lot of people never even consider that. And this might help somebody watching this video because if you've lost your income today, what's the real number that you'd need to survive? Not your ideal lifestyle. No, not fancy vacations, not eating out all the time at expensive restaurants, your real number. Because sometimes fear gets smaller when the math gets clearer. And when I ran my own numbers, that changed my entire mindset. You see, my rental income is stable. That property is paid off, and I've also got a separate 6 month emergency rental savings set aside. So when I stripped everything down, I realized I'd only need about $1,000 more per month. And when you realize your gap is only $1,000, suddenly your options look very different. And listen, I've actually thought about working in a coffee shop. One of the first jobs that I had was in a French cafe. And for some reason, that always stayed with me. The slower pace, the conversations, the smell of the coffee in the morning. There's something peaceful about it. And I know some people hear that and think, wait, you worked in finance as an assistant vice president, and now you want to work in a coffee shop? Yeah, maybe. Because at this point in my life, peace matters more than status. If you are retired now and had to go back to work tomorrow, would you go back to the same kind of job? Or would you want a completely different life? I'm curious, let me know. But listen, honestly, the hardest part wouldn't even be the job itself. It would be giving up the freedom, having to wake up because I have to, having to follow a schedule again, having to structure my whole life around work again. And believe it or not, even driving feels different to me now. Once your life slows down, you start realizing how stressed you actually were before. And I think a lot of people are carrying stress they've lived with so long. They think it's normal until it's gone. Then suddenly your body feels different. Your mind feels different. You breathe differently. There's something else I thought about. I'd probably be nervous interviewing again. I haven't interviewed for a job in over a decade. And interviews today feel different with the behavioral questions and the situational questions and all that stuff. I definitely feel rusty. You ever do something you haven't done in years and immediately realize that I'm out of practice? Well, that would probably be me. But before I went back to a regular job, I would probably try creating income on my own first, like a side hustle, maybe expand my coaching, something flexible. I also have the option to use my dividends. My investment portfolio generates about $600 a month in income, which is currently being reinvested. Maybe I could start using that income. So if I can create that extra $1,000 myself, maybe I never have to go back. Sometimes we panic because we think we have to solve our entire future overnight. But most big life changes don't happen that way. Most people change your life one small decision at a time. One better habit, one less expense, one extra income stream, one brave conversation, one small step repeated long enough. And that's how lives change slowly, quietly, over time. So if your situation feels uncertain right now, don't focus on fixing your whole life tonight. Just focus on the next right step. Because sometimes the next step is the thing that eventually changes everything. If any of this makes sense to you, let me know by hitting that like button. But honestly, that's what this journey has really been teaching me. Life keeps changing. Plans change, health changes, money changes, but the ability to adjust, both personally and professionally, that's probably one of the most valuable skill a person can have. And going through all of this has made me realize something that I haven't really talked about yet, and that is what I regret, and what I don't. So I'll talk about that in my next video. See you then.